Hello, welcome back to my bookshelf tour. I always kind of drag the camera myself forward towards the camera once I press play. So yes, let's get into some more of my. We're still in comic books territory. And yes, we've got a couple of repeat offenders here, and one appearance by a fellow who we'll be seeing a fair bit of. Start off with Billy Hazelnuts by Tony Millionaire. I've been showing you off his Mickey's comic strips. This is more of a it's a graphic novel with more the traditional thing, not the three panel strip that he'd been doing. I don't know if he does 3 panels, maybe he does 4 panels in his things. They're very, as you can see by his work here, it's all kind of like lovely ink scratchy drawn. You get that with that in the front. This is about a story about Becky, girl scientist, and her pal Billy Hazelnuts, who's created from suet yeast and discarded mincemeat pie by mice in the basement, and their journey to find the missing moon while battling an evil steam-driven alligator with a seeing eye skunk. And yeah, it's got kind of a weird kind of you almost think it's a doll, like kind of weird, 18th century dolls or something like that. I really do think of the kind of the old turn of the century comic artists. We saw a bit of Fritz. What's his name? Of gosh darn it, I can't even see him here. Of of that sort of stuff, of that kind of Fritzenheimer kids, Jatzenheimer. Oh, I can't even remember. But it's kind of got that old timey style, which is well suited to his material. Someone else who's very much kind of influenced by the older comics is a fellow named R. Crumb, Robert Crumb, one of probably the premier of the indie artists coming out of sort of the 60s, though he himself was never particularly on the hippie free love side, much more on the neurotic Jewish side. And this is R. Crumb's Kafka, which actually what it is, it's R. Crumb, art by Robert Crumb and script by David Zane Marowitz. So using his script to illustrate his interpretation of Kafka, and being another kind of pretty neurotic Jewish artist, going in very much in for the neuroses. Kafka doing it pre-Freud, or I think before getting into Freud, whereas obviously Crumb is kind of a thing outside of that. At some point, I will, when I get down to my main complete Crumb down below, I'll also pick out the documentary called Crumb by Terry Zwigoff, which is like, you start off thinking like, wow, Crumb is the most damaged, bizarre person, but then you meet his family and you realize, no, he's the well-adjusted one. He's the one that was able to rise above the neuroses, the severe damage in that family, and actually have a productive life by drawing out his stuff. He also, at the very end of the book, there is his graphic interpretation of The Hunger Artist by Kafka, using much of the text of Kafka. So that's a very kind of the high literary side. Robert Crumb is somebody who's doing a kind of life of Kafka, did a thing of the Bible, doing kind of illustrations from the Bible, which is kind of obviously the Old Testament, or probably the Jewish side of the Bible. I don't know if he would go on to do the Christian side, if that would particularly interest him. Doing that, but also doing weird, like scatological animal stories of decapitated women, all very muscular, women with big asses. That's obviously his thing. Stories that were just really disturbing, kind of takedowns of kind of 50s life, with, it's like, oh, it's Leave It to Beaver, but with incest. It's like really confronting stuff that way. Somebody who used a lot of the very racist, stereotypical depictions of non-white people in his cartoons, as a part of just sort of depicting the kind of the white fear, white neuroses. It's not, so, someone who's probably fairly explosive back then, even probably more explosive then. I would even, it's one of these things of, I think he's a valuable artist. I don't know if I'd actually show a lot of those images on a channel, just because, taken out of the kind of the context of his work, they're horrible racist imagery. So, an interesting fellow, which I think somebody who's actually from, a white perspective, is talking about race in America, talking about racism in America. Now his sexism probably less examined. It's a lot more about male desire, and his male desire specifically. Which, obviously you've seen the other videos on my channel. I'm one to talk about that, of how well I'm able to examine my own sexuality and what turns me on, especially through comics. Yeah, we'll get to that. And then we have a selection here of 4 books from Fantagraphic Books of Gilbert Hernandez. All centering around, I think they're all centering around Fritz, who is, this is Rosalia Fritz Martinez, who becomes a movie star, of kind of Z-grade production movie stars, and these are his graphic novels of those movies. So, exploitation movies, the young girl moving to the big city, and prostitution, and terrible things. That cover isn't really, it's still very much inside. It's the Beto Gilbert style, but it's definitely using a lot of the kind of the pulp, lurid storytelling that he enjoys. Still with all that family stuff in there. So we get Chance in Hell, we get the Troublemakers. You can see all these. I think a lot of these might come out from, like, when they were telling the story of Fritz just as an actress. They'd have like the cool movie posters, and you can see, some of these movie posters obviously got a they got lodged in his head, and he decided to tell the stories. Murder, betrayal, and all sorts of things. Bikini Babe with gun. Oop, I guess that was upside down. And then, Maria M, which I think is where she is actually, now she's going to tell the true, in quotation, story of her mother's life. Maria M was told, the true story of Maria M was told in Hernandez's classic Poison River collection from the pages of Love and Rockets. This original graphic novel embodies the first part of the film version. So it's a film version of something that's been told as our true version earlier on in the kind of the history of thing, which might be getting a little bit into kind of the self-referential, but it's done in such a pulpy kind of fun way that I enjoy it. Love in the Shadows, Love from the Shadows. The dude with these kind of gorgeously painted covers, though, yes, as I said, within the books, we are getting more of that kind of that cartoony style that I really enjoy of Mr. Hernandez. Yes. So I think of the books, he's probably the most productive of the 2 Hernandez brothers. Beto, of the 2 that I follow, Beto, Gilbert and Gilbert and Beto. Yeah. He's the most productive of the two. Produces quite a bit, or at least has had a real good run in there. I'm not quite sure what the guys are doing at the moment. This is the thing with comic artists. It takes so long between stuff. Sometimes just economically, I can't do. And also sometimes I kind of drift off of comic books and graphic novels and all that stuff. I just seem to go through periods where like, oh, I'll do a lot. Did a lot of like library ones for a good while in there, just because a lot of these books are very expensive, which they need to be because the artists take so long to do them. They are, and it's it costs a lot more to make one of these books than it does a novel or short story collection where it's just text. But it also is that financial drain, which has always been a constant theme with me with comic books. That's from like when I got out of comic books as a kind of an early teen. It was like, well, I can get a lot more secondhand science fiction books than I can comics. So why not do that instead? And probably my interests were shifting. Don't know. Maybe my interests are shifting, have shifted again. It's interesting going through this collection. Some of this stuff seems very far away from where I was. Some not so. But yeah. So I'm enjoying doing my trip down memory lane for myself at least. So we'll leave it there.